We're trying to make help easily accessible to customers in our retail store. And the call buttons that currently exist on the market, or the solutions that exist on the market, were quite expensive for the amount of things that they delivered. What we really wanted to do was put up hundreds of call buttons in a store. If you did it the traditional way, it would go over your walkie-talkies, or it would go over the PA system, which would just be, kind of chaotic for staff. So the idea was, okay, let's put up hundreds of buttons in the store that look like this. And rather than send it over the walkie-talkie, we create a system, Meerby, that understands all the staff in the store and directs the calls to the appropriate resources so that we can make sure that we get the right person there. And if they're taking too long to respond, we have a smart way to escalate the request so it reaches support teams and then the management team. And what you can see on my screen right now is just the signage. So we started off with these wing panel signage in our store, where we had these at the end of every second aisle in the store. We've done quite a few installs now, so there's been a few iterations of our signage. And when we come into stores, we're covering off every showcase, every in-aisle unshoppable location, anything big, any scan and buy tablets, stuff like that, we'll have a sign that covers it. So on average, right now, our installs are about 120 buttons per store, but that scales up and scales down. Our lowest store has 30 buttons in it, and our highest store has 250 buttons in it, so quite a big range. And this is the app that routes everything. So this is Meerby. It's really simple. So this is the user interface. You can see there's a few tabs along the bottom, and I'll walk you guys through what these tabs are. Really, the staff live in this screen here, which is the request tab. Now, when a customer presses a button, the requests show up here. And then we have the in progress tab, which shows you a live view as to where staff are currently engaged. And I'll explain what it means by customer scouted self-engagement in just a moment. But if somebody was responding to a button, you'd be able to see the location here. I just pressed a button there on wood platform. So you can see it shows up there, seasonal wood platform, conversation sets, aisle 107, and then there's a timer counting. So the staff click on the request and they press claim. And you can see when you press claim, it removes it from the request tab. Now it's moved to the in progress tab. So this really gives the management team an oversight as to, where are all the interactions happening in the store right now. And the last one there, you can see here, okay, 15, 16 seconds, Rakesh is currently walking over to that customer. So it's kind of 3 stages to a request. So first, the staff claim the request, then they travel to the customer, mark themselves as arrived, and then they engage with the customer. And Meerby is more than just a send the request to everyone. It's a dispatching system. So one, it sends the request to the right person. Then the next part of this is that it understands who is actively available right now and who is not available. So right now, you can see in the top right corner, my icon is red. And that indicates to Meerby that I'm currently busy. I'm engaging with a customer. And what that means is that if I'm the only staff member in seasonal right now, and I'm currently engaged with a customer, if another customer pressed a button, it's smart enough to go, okay, well, Rakesh is currently busy right now, so don't send it to Rakesh, route it to the next available staff. So it's actively monitoring who's available and who's engaged and sends the request accordingly. So like I said, I'm traveling to the customer right now. There's a few buttons on the screen. All the buttons, we've really focused on keeping it very easy for staff to understand. So you'll see the buttons don't really float around. They live at the bottom here. So you have the delayed button and the arrived at customer button. If you press the delayed button, it sends the request back out to staff. Essentially, if I'm traveling to the customer and if I get interrupted along the way, I can click delayed. It'll send the request back out to the staff. Once I get to the customer, I press arrived. And then we have these tip cards here. This tip card isn't programmed. It's just programmed generically. But the idea of the tip cards is that we're trying to add value to the sales engagement. So if I'm selling a lawnmower to a customer, if I'm walking over to the lawnmower button, and it's my first time selling a lawnmower to a customer, I might not know what to say. So I might just walk over and be like, hey, how can I help you? And then I don't really know where to go from there. The idea of the tip card is that while I'm walking to the customer, I can read this tip card and have an engaging question. So if it was a lawnmower, the lawnmower tip card says, ask the customer if they have any hills in their yard. If they do, suggest a rear wheel driven lawnmower. And then at least I have one question in my, my mental roster that I can bring out while I'm talking to the customer and increase the likelihood of conversion. But I walk to the customer and essentially I press arrived once I get there. And now you can see in the in progress tab, my second timer has started there. It says 4 seconds, 5 seconds. I'm currently helping that customer and the app knows I'm helping. And you can see the rest of the requests that are happening here. See Red Bull vendor is asking for a manager at customer service to receive an order. Engen, that's a manager responding to that. Engen is currently in seasonal at the sprinklers. You can see what requests are happening in real time. And now you just help the customer. You help the customer for as long as it takes. And there's different, there's long engagement reminders in place. So if the staff is taking too long to help the customer, or more than what's expected, notification will go off to the management team as well as the staff member. So there's monitoring tools in place as well.
Is that a preset thing, or you can adjust that? You could say we wanted it 36 seconds or whatever, or can you modify that? Yeah.
Yeah, so every timer in the app is modifiable. So that timer is modifiable at a global level. So you can say, I want every button to notify at 5 minutes. And then you can also set it at specific buttons. So for example, our paint desk, party city desk are set differently than the generic one. As we're talking about timers is how it chooses to escalate. So the app will escalate in two ways. The first way I mentioned was based on availability. So if I'm a primary staff member in seasonal and I'm not available, it escalates to the secondary group. That's what these two groupings are. First is availability based escalation. The second is just strictly time. So in seasonal, I'm the only staff member, but I'm currently interacting with a customer, but I don't tell Meerby that I'm currently interacting with a customer. It's going to wait that minute for it to escalate, and then it'll escalate to the secondary team. That's both based on time and availability.
Okay.
Then the staff press complete once they're done, and the list of outcomes come up. Again, this is also customizable, so you can select what outcomes you want. Normally, when we start with the store, it's just 4 outcomes that will show up here. Did I sell something? Did I not sell something? Was the customer missing when I got there? Or did I direct the customer somewhere? So the staff just select that. And now my icon in the top right corner is back to green. So I'm available again. Buttons are being used in our stores for a lot more than just customer facing applications. Like you can see on the screen here, this request is going on for a good amount of time now. It's escalated to our management team and it says backup to cash pod. So we have buttons at the cash registers. We have 6 buttons at the cash register. So the cashier has a button for I need backup to cash. I need a manager to customer service. But a customer is making me uncomfortable. I need carry outs or I need shopping carts. So there's a few different use cases that you can use your front end. But really, the idea is that any request that you typically go over the walkie-talkie and say, and you're used to repeating over the walkie-talkie, rather than you repeating it over the walkie-talkie, if you press the button, Meerby will be in charge of making sure that somebody responds and they respond in a timely manner. One of the pieces to that is Meerby knowing when the staff are and are not available. So I showed you one way, which is you respond to a request and Meerby now knows that the staff member is not available, but not all requests start with a customer pressing the button. For you to, if a customer came up to you and said, I need help with this, or you went up to the customer and said, do you need help finding anything? You can mark in the app if it's going to take you longer than 30 seconds to help the customer by just double clicking on this meerkat at the bottom. If you double click it, it starts the self-engagement, which is why it says customer scouted here, self-engagement. Those are examples of when the staff members are just marking it manually. So we're measuring both proactive and reactive customer service in here. So this is the dashboard. So the dashboard updates once an hour. So I'm just going to refresh it here so it updates. So we're pulling sales from the POS, but obviously we're forecasting our sales every day, but we're also forecasting our sales hourly. And we have a tool that helps stores with this if you're not already doing this. But what you can see here is what our sales were at 1 p.m. So our actual sales are at $51,000. Our forecasted sales were $49,000. So we're 4% ahead of budget. Our average basket is $83. And then that little circle, 3.9, is the number of units per transaction. Pretty high for average units per transaction today. This is the number of transactions, 619. And then this 23% is the percentage of customers that we've engaged with through Meerby today. Our average Canadian Tire engages with 9% of the traffic using Meerby. Canada, we are very strong using this tool, and we're trying to get our stores to increase what we call beacon penetration. Today, we're at 23%, and that ranges from 19 to 30% for us. Second part of the dashboard here, one of the things in Canadian Tire is that you can measure pretty much everything in the store, but one of the things you can't really measure is how your team is contributing towards customer service or the sales outcome at the end of the day. We have a sales team in our store, and literally their only job is to help customers. So the challenge that we had prior to Meerby was how do we quantify their actual effort? And, we would say, sales are up, great job sales team, or sales are down. Where was the sales team today? But now we have a tool that actually tells us how we're contributing to sales. And one of these measures is wait time. So wait time distribution, you can see here the average wait time today is 52 seconds from a customer pressing a button to us being in front of the customer. So 40 times today we had a positive wait time, which means that the customer pressed the button and it took us less than a minute 15 to show up to the customer. And a negative wait time is anything over a minute 45. So 6 times today it took us too long to respond to the customer. Because we're measuring, we're also tracking how long they're in the engagement. We also have service time here. So, The average amount of time we're spending with customers today is 3 minutes and 42 seconds. The total number of hours we've actually spent servicing customers is almost 9 hours today. We have a table with response distribution. So the idea is that not all requests are going to be responded by the staff that we want to respond to them, which is the primary staff. Sometimes it's going to take us too long to respond, or the primary staff aren't going to be available. So the request will escalate to the next tier of staff. So it was primary, secondary. You can ignore skill appropriate for now, and it jumps to leadership. So there's really 3 tiers there. But this chart is showing you the distribution of response. This is the number of buttons pressed today, beacons. So 46 customers pressed a button today. 98 times we manually marked ourselves as busy in the app. This help function, I'll explain in a moment, but essentially it's in-app messaging. We don't have any walkie-talkies at our store anymore. We do all of our communication through Meerby. This allows you to essentially type out a free format message and it'll send it to the staff. And then the last 2 points here are conversion and the quality of engagement. So we have touches and impressions. The idea is that we want our staff members, especially because we have a sales team and their sole job is helping customers. We don't want them just asking the customer, do you need help? Okay, it's in aisle 14. We want them actually going with the customer. So the idea of an impression is that it's a longer engagement and a touch is a shorter engagement. And the staff self-mark their outcome of the end of the sale. So this here is the conversion math. I showed you there was the customer-facing dashboard. So it's only accounting for customer buttons. And then we have, this is the support dashboard. And this is showing you how many times today did we request backup to cash? How many times do we need a manager? Do we need a cash manager? Different things that are more internal use cases. So 11 times today already we've requested backup to cash. I used to run the front end at our store. That was my job for many years. And one of the shifts that we used to run before Meerby was a 10 to 5 cash shift. We would always have that in place on Saturdays to cover off lunch breaks and then have them extend into the evening. And now what we're doing is we've removed that 10 to 5 cash shift and moved that resource onto our floor. We're now doing a more effective job of calling backup to cash rather than having them just standing on the cash register all day long. So you can see in here, if you wanted to see the individual backup to cash button, I can see the actual amount of time that we've used that resource for today. So we've called them 11 times, but they've only been on cash for 30 minutes total. You can see a lot of requests going on in here. But yeah, that's generally, so that covers a bit of some features. I'll cover one more thing, and then I'd love to just talk to you about the tool and what we're doing. So the last thing I'll cover here is the dispatch menu. This is the free format message I was talking about. So staff can come in here and they could type out, if I worked at customer service, I could say a customer is heading over to lawnmowers. Could you meet them there? Or I need a manager to customer service. It's over my dollar amount. Or if this was a price check, I could send a photo of the item to the sales team. They send me back a photo of the ESL tag, and then I can just show the customer whether or not the price was wrong. We also have a function in here called read in action. And the idea of these 2 functions is everything I've shown you so far is one-to-one communication, meaning that I send a request and one person responds to it. A read is more broadcasting. So I could say to the team, thunderstorm incoming, we're preparing to close the garden center. And that's a message that everybody will receive and they have to acknowledge. Or you might have an action, which is I have a message for everyone to receive, garden center's closing. Then I also have an action. So maybe the thunderstorm's coming. I could say, prepare the power outage kits at cash. My next action could be to the merch team. And I could say, move the umbrellas and ponchos to the front of the store, that kind of thing. And that request would send out to the corresponding staff members. Generally covers a quick version of the tool. And then there's a little bit more I can talk to you guys about in terms of what we're doing for install and then what we're doing for customer success. But before I get into that, I just wanted to cover any questions you might have in regards to the actual demonstration.
The screen you showed that showed the sales and that, can you have that so only the managers see that, or does everybody see that?
Right now, everybody sees it. Everything is customizable. So yes, you can have it so just your management profiles can see it. The reason why we have all of our staff able to see it is some of these slower periods, we're quite transparent with the staff on sales. Sales are tied to hours. So we're quite transparent in sharing where we're at in terms of progress for sales. And we use that read function to share with them where we're at and give them a fair warning of, we might be cutting hours this afternoon. And then it's very logical as to why we're cutting the hours.
Yeah, I just had a couple questions there.
Yeah.
The profile setup, how in depth is it? Because I know we just went over this sales data. Like, how customizable is it?
For the individual staff members?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a good question. Are you department modeled or are you a task modeled store?
Or department modeled. In some cases, we are tasked depending on what the season is.
Do you have a sales team, or is that sales are the responsibility of the department?
The responsibility of the department.
Okay, sounds good. So the staff would come in once and set up that, okay, I work in hardware. That's my primary department. And my secondary department is, let's just say, housewares. I go over and support them when they're busy. Those are two of the things that they set. The third thing that they set is their skill set. So one thing I didn't talk about was skill-based deployment.
Right.
And the idea here is you don't send anybody to the paint desk. Send the person that knows how to mix paint to the paint desk. So they set up which skills they know how to do and which skills they don't know how to do, and Meerby will deploy that accordingly as well. But really, it's just first name, last name, and username and password that we set up for them, and then you can choose to have it so that they set those things up, or that you set up those things for them and they don't have access to edit it.
Yeah.
And another thing that you can control is which departments you set up for those people. So if you notice someone's wrong or their status is wrong, you can change it in real time on your device.
Earlier, you were going over some pre questions about, a lawnmower, let's say. Are those, you guys have that all set up already? Can we add our own? Do we start from scratch with our own questions for that?
Yep. So the installation process, typically what happens on the day of install is a lot of things happen, but I'll cut to what happens with those things. We install the buttons, and we won't have a tip card to launch. The tip card to launch is just a generic message, not a generic message, but a message about the new tool that's in their store. It takes us about, because we're setting up these tip cards manually currently. That's
Right.
our current process. So we go in and we'll set those up for you post-install. And normally by the end of the second week that you're on the program, every tip card in your store will be updated to a relevant tip card that matches, it's relevant. And then following that, it's then the responsibility of the store as
Right.
merchandising seasons happen to edit those.
Yeah.
There's a few override functions. So I talked about tip cards as questions, but we set them up as questions and add-ons. And then there's in store settings, there's I want to change the tip card for everything just for today. So on bonus days, we always recommend to our stores to change your tip card so that everybody in the store is aware of what bonus day is happening. You can also change the tip card. You can override it for a department. So in Christmas time, we'll recommend to all the stores that in seasonal, you change every button's tip card to be the Christmas return policy. So that's very transparent. But yeah, you have the ability and we have the ability to change. You can change it. It's very, very customizable.
Perfect.
10 is enough, you're finding in the stores for
High end. So the lowest deployment I've done is six devices in the store. And I didn't find that was quite enough. So we're just doing 10 across the board, 2 per department. What I should say with that is it's 10 staff devices. All the stores that have joined the program have allowed their management team to install it on their own phone if they'd like to. And then that has been sufficient to support the store.
How many buttons on average? Canada's what now, 85,000 square feet? How many buttons do you have there?
We're crazy in Canada, so we have way too many buttons. We have so many buttons. So we have 275 buttons in our store.
Okay.
But a true what's your square footage?
65.
65. Okay. So yeah, we would install 100. If I was mapping it as I would as any Canadian Tire, I would put up 120 buttons. It's totally it's preference based. So if you'd like less buttons or more buttons, we can do that. What I'm walking for right now is we've stopped doing buttons on the exterior of aisles, so you won't see them on the wing panels anymore. What I focus on is in aisle showcases, unshoppable, everything like that, and that adds up to 120, including the internal buttons. So things like backup to cache. 120 buttons.
I'm going to assume that your dashboard works on a desktop PC also, so whoever else that wants to monitor it from their desk, they can do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a few ways that we provide you the reporting. First way is that in-app dashboard that I showed you and that we have open on our computer all the time. The second thing that you can have in your office is there's a live view as well. So if you have a TV in your office, you can just put up the live view, and what that shows you is all the in-progress requests as well as the request tab. So anything that's awaiting response. Yeah. We send weekly reporting as well. And the idea of the weekly reporting is that you shouldn't have to do any computations. We've done all the reporting already, and you just have to look at the report. So this is an example of we share 2 reports. So the first report is a high-level overview. So we call this a quick summary report. So this is 422, which is Orleans. week 26. So last week they had 603 customers press a button. They scouted, which is that self-engagement, 512 times. They don't really use that in-app messaging too often. They're really just pressing their buttons. So there's a very few of those. Wait time, response distribution. This is the number of times a customer was marked as missing after having pressed the button. So 10 customers last week. So either that we took too long to respond, or some kids were having fun pressing buttons.
Right.
And this is the total number of customer service hours, 90.51. This year, again, you guys are department-based, so this gives you a good understanding of which departments are responding efficiently. And then your top buttons that were pressed last week, and their average wait time, their total service time. That's a high-level overview. And we're also providing you a detailed report, and this detailed report is so cool. But in here, you can see everything that we just showed you, but in depth. So day breakdown per day of everything we just discussed. But you can also see in here staff members. So I can see this is all great things, staff response. But then you can also understand a little bit of delinquency here. So this table is showing you, how many times was Annie available last week, but the request escalated past her response level. So this is helping us use this as a coaching tool. And then there's a comparative table down here to understand, how is my results or how my store performing against stores that are also using the system. So this is every store that's currently on Meerby for you to get that understanding.
Rakesh, so obviously, we have our own lockups and whatnot, but do you have a general template for the 120 that you initially deploy?
In terms of locations?
Yeah.
We site inspect. So the day before your installation, I have a full walk of your store, list out all the locations that we're going to install. But it's custom to your store. But yeah, I mean, it is very much similar across most Canadian tires.
Yeah.
But no, it'll be specific to your store.
Okay. Send us the document. We'll sign it.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay. Let me get that over to you then.
Perfect.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
See ya.